Mr. Chair, the time is 9:30. We now have quorum.
Thank you. And Review Committee. My name is Corey Bates and I'm the chair. The following guidelines are in place for meetings in the council chamber at City Hall. Only the south entrance to City Hall will be open for access to the building. For exiting the building, all accesses can be used. Air purifying machines have been installed in the chamber, and hand sanitizer machines and disposable face masks are available. When called on, applicants and speakers will come to the front podium to speak. Only one person at a time should come to the podium. Please speak into the microphone and identify yourself when you begin speaking. Address your comments to the committee and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Citizens may address the committee on agenda items by responding to the call for speakers during discussion on each item. Similarly, please speak into the microphone, identify yourself when you begin speaking, and sign the speaker's log at the podium. All comments must be relevant to the item being discussed. The chair or presiding officer may, in his or her discretion, prohibit a person from addressing the committee and/or remove that person from council chambers if that person commits any disorderly or disruptive behavior. Please reference the meeting agenda for information about these requirements. If you parked in the Sheridan Walker parking garage north of John Rex Elementary, staff can provide a parking validation for you. The agenda and documents are located online at https://okc.primegov.com/public/portal. You would then select the Downtown Design Review Committee meeting, click on an agenda item, and the relevant documents will come up below the item. Princess, would you please call roll?
Commissioner Bates,
Present.
Committee Member Brannon, Committee Member Black,
Present.
Committee Member Copeland,
Present.
Committee Member Jones,
Present.
Committee Member Sarur,
Present.
Committee Member Trujillo. Mr. Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you. Item 2, approval of the minutes. I believe everyone's had a record for review of last meeting's minutes. If there are any comments or discussion, if not, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes. Second.
That was a Jones-Blatt motion. If everybody could please vote.
If Committee Member Sir is not yet logged into PrimeGov, we may need to do a voice vote for her.
Committee Member Sarur, how would you like to vote on the minutes?
Oh, you can vote. You can voice vote.
Yes, sorry.
Close vote.
Okay, that motion passes. Thank you, Princess. We can move on. Item 3, cases withdrawn. There are none. Item 4, continuance requests. There are none. Item 5, consent docket. There are no items. Item 6, cases for individual consideration. The first item, Dtca 21-00027 at 701 West Sheridan Avenue. We'll have staff introduce the item to get started.
Good morning, Laura Griggs, Planning Department. This item was continued at the May 20th, 2021 DDRC meeting, and I'm going to quote from the motion that was made, to allow the applicant to provide information, documentation from preservation experts for total removal or enhancements with fading the paint. The applicant has submitted additional information about several paint removal products that they tried and the results of these efforts, and that was included in your packet, and we will have them available today for the applicant to talk through those. No additional information from preservation experts was provided. As you are aware, this has been hanging around for several years. And staff feels that absent any additional information from a preservation expert, and given that multiple products have been tried unsuccessfully to totally remove the paint, we recommend approval of this request to eliminate the requirement to remove portions of the paint, and we do have a slide of those areas if anyone wants to see them. There were select areas around the windows where there is some detailing of both different colors of brick as well as different orientation of the brick. Staff recommends approval of this request with the condition that paint not be maintained and be allowed to naturally weather and fade. Mark Falk, representing Paramount Partners, is here to speak. Do you all have any questions for me?
Do we have any questions for staff?
Okay.
Okay. Signed in. Good morning. Let's see, so since the last time we were here, we...
Can you identify yourself?
Oh,
Mr.
I'm
Falk?
sorry, I'm Mark Falk, one of the owners of the Paramount Building. We bought the building in 2014 and been through a lot of process with that building. So the goal was to try a couple different products on the bricks. We talked to painting specialist who recommended the knockoff that you'll be seeing, and then the other one we tried was just the basic paint stripper from Home Depot. And then previously we had tried a washing removal that didn't work, and we had tried that two-part component. You remember that had the white, so I tried to get that off as well, so we'll look at that. So on the corner that we chose to look at, there were essentially three different colors. There was a yellow paint, there's a kind of a brown paint, and then you see the white stripe paint. So next slide. These were the two products we tried. The first one on the left is just, mark it, go to the Home Depot and buy it. And the second one was the knockoff that was recommended by the guys at Munger. So I've worked with those guys at Munger for years. They are, I think, the best paint guys in Oklahoma City. This is what they gave to me, including all of the instructions. Okay, next slide. The instructions for this are not easy. It's a complicated process of 2 applications and waiting 2 hours, and so we did all that. We'll demonstrate all of that. So next. Somebody had painted graffiti on our mailbox, so just as a test to see if the knockoff worked, I applied it to that paint, and you can see that it took it off. So it's actually a really good paint remover. In this particular mailbox, that paint came off in about 30 seconds. I mean, I applied it and it wiped off. So it's an effective paint remover. And there, it did not remove the actual paint of the box. So it really focused on that second, graffiti paint. Okay, next. This is the block, the brick, one of the detail bricks that we tried. So the recommendation is to tape off everything all around it. We did that. You can see the application is that white liquid on the brick. Next. Then you have to cover it up for 2 hours. That day, it wasn't very hot that day. It was kind of in the low 80s and mid-humidity, so it was a perfect day to apply. But it did recommend that you cover it up and let it sit for 2 hours. So there it is, covered up. I also tried to apply it to one of the field bricks. So the red field bricks are also that rugose surface. But I wanted to see how it worked on that. So you can see the painted brick is the brown one below. The unpainted bricks are red, and this half of this brick was painted brown. So I wanted to test it on the field bricks as well. Next. This is the area that didn't work before. So what I did is I applied the knockoff to that area, and what you see is a couple of things. So I apply it, and then I have a nylon brush that I'm brushing. So you can see the splatter onto the window from where I was brushing. You see the white splatter. But underneath the white, which was the original two-part system, you can see that the black paint under there, while some of it was removed, a lot of it still stays in the crevices of the brick. So you can see the mortar joint still has black in it, and you can see in that lower brick, there's still black paint. So I was able to remove a fair amount of that white caked up junk. I couldn't get it all, but in scrubbing that paint, you see that it splatters everywhere. So it would require the whole building to be covered if we were going to go ahead with this. So next. So this is the brick after the first 2-hour test. And what you see is the white paint from that cut across that brick. That white paint did come off. But you can see that the detail brick is stained kind of brown. It's not the original color. It took on the color, it liquefied that paint, and then it just stained into that. So next. Oh, thank you. So there's that brick. There's a field brick, so the lower bricks are smooth faced. So I thought, well, let's try it on the smooth face to see if it's the paint or if it's the brick. So I then did the lower brick just as a test. So next. Second application. Covered it up. There's the result. So it's really interesting, the solid flat brick with no rugose surface and no porosity, that paint comes right off. You see those two yellow bricks? That's exactly the original color of that field brick. You see the brick above is still, even after the second coat, you can see where it removed the white stripe, but it does not take off the brown color. So next I'll show you a comparison. There's the original brick. There's the color of the original bricks. They're kind of a yellowish, not really orange, but a little orange tint to them. And now the next one, I think I put them side by side. There they are side by side. We can't get that color back. So that test area, it liquefies the paint, but in scrubbing it and trying to get it to wash it off, it just rubs into those crevices. I tried to use a metal brush. The metal brush actually damages the brick. The metal brush actually chips off small pieces of that rugose surface. Next. That's it. Oh, that was our certificate from the. If I can show one thing, I mean, not trying to make any case that we should have gotten, we know we made a mistake. But what we've seen over the last couple of months is a lot of images of the building. So this was the Gazette article from last week about our building and about all of the tenants and what we're bringing to that community. And this is from the Oklahoma City magazine. Did a piece on murals, and that our building was featured in that as well. So I'm not trying to, I know what we did was not right, and we apologize again. It seems to be an attraction now. People seem to like it. We get a lot of comments on it. So that's what we've done. A little bit frustrating that it's not coming off, but.
And I just wanted to point out, so what we've put on the screen is one of the drawings that was prepared, and there's areas that are circled in red, and those were the areas that staff had recommended that they remove paint from, just so as a comparison of the areas, because they were minimal. And so then you can kind of compare that to the efforts that they tried to get the paint off. And
Yeah,
we can show any slide that you want to that of any of this process, because we pretty much have it all up there.
Okay.
Test area was that lower right-hand window below Woody Guthrie. That was the test.
Oh, so the Woody Guthrie neck.
Yes.
Okay.
So that white stripe was that guitar fret that did come off, but the other paint did not.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Any discussion, thoughts?
I do have, I appreciate the efforts. I understand that there wasn't any consultant comment included, but I do see that you went through some effort to try and see if you could accomplish something positive on your own. I'm not a fan of painted brick. I do feel like that what we have in front of us is what we know, and anything that we would go forward and try to do, we don't know. So it could create a situation that we like even less, a blurred, muddy, some kind of, where areas that are touched might really be like pulling a thread on a sweater, and it just might start to unravel. So although I'm not a fan of the painted brick, I understand kind of where we are, and I'm not in favor of doing a large-scale scientific experiment on the building facade and not know what it's going to be like ultimately. So I'm kind of leaning towards leaving it just as it is and not maintaining it.
So Chair, I know we only have one other person in the audience, but Holly might want to speak on this, so just as a reminder, because sometimes we kind of just fly through
Sure.
that portion.
Would anyone from the gallery like to speak to this? Do we have any other thoughts? I'll chime in here. This project obviously goes way back, and there's been a lot of discussion and effort on this. I do very much appreciate what you presented this morning compared to, just the history of the project. I mean, seeing the detail of the effort is the kind of information I think we were looking for to help make a decision. In last month's meeting, or not last month, but in the last meeting we discussed this, I had talked in terms of, we're deciding to either just leave it the way it is, or, well, we're deciding if we should leave it the way it is and let the weather take care of it, because we haven't found a solution that gets it off 100%. And at the last time we discussed this, I was very interested in knowing what's the middle ground. It's, talking about just leaving it there, doing nothing, and we can't get 100%. What can we do? And I think that's what you've presented today. I actually am encouraged by the progress that you showed with the knockoff. And although it's not removing the paint 100%, it is removing some of the highlights. The white, like you mentioned, comes off. And it does change the tone of the brick. And from my understanding, with the nylon brush, the brick remained intact. There was no structural integrity issues with the brick. I would be in favor of using that knockoff product that you presented on the areas that have been recommended by staff to address. And even though that won't take off the paint 100%, it will certainly create a delineation between those architectural details and the rest of the mural, even if it's a slight fade between the two. And then it'll also, as you've shown, remove some of the highlights, maybe the whites, to create, again, a contrast or a distinction between the architectural elements and the rest of the mural within the field brick. And so, having gone through the test with a knockoff, showing that the integrity of the brick is intact and that some progress was made, I would lean towards doing that than doing nothing and leaving it up to the weather to degrade this over time.
I realize we're going to come from a little bit of a different point on this. In the event that more is done, I think it's really critical the way that it's masked and protected so material does not get off of the affected areas and into the field. If you're up on a scaffolding or something and you're working in the higher areas above Paramount and material is being applied, there's a level of care that should not be assumed in this case, because that's the fear of the unknown. So I understand, there's, however this goes, the ultimate situation is we don't want to have a condition in which we're looking back and saying, I wish we would have not done that or commented first or somehow, some way. So there is a process that, in the event that that's the recommendation of the board, that I think that it's important that it be part of the motion. My 2 cents.
The cost of just that knockoff, I did that work. So because it's, it's a 2-coat process and 2 hours each time, so it's a full 1 day. That's why I wanted to show that slide of the splatter. So it's going to be really difficult, to cover the detail of the brick and the field brick. It's and expensive.
So my comment is along the comments that Tony's been making, is that even though we understand the history and what was originally or what is there now was not necessarily what should have occurred, it has become something that people do see. Me and my family have observed it over the years as we have visited that area. I am concerned that the efforts to try to get this in compliance may adversely impact the mural that creates something that may not be as visually appealing as currently there. And that is my concern. I thought the staff's recommendation is probably the best solution moving forward. It is what it is, and that maybe the best way to deal with it is to allow it to fade in a way that does not take away from the area by creating something, and that is my fear, that there may be gaps in areas with the removal that makes the mural look less appealing and maybe even take away from what's currently there. So at least my initial thought, unless there's other arguments to the contrary, is that the staff recommendation is the best middle ground in order to proceed moving forward.
Do we have any other thoughts or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District Zoning Ordinance as referenced in sections C and D of the staff report, with the condition that the paint not be maintained and be allowed to naturally weather and fade.
I will second the motion.
That was a Jones-Blatt motion. Committee Member Jones, have you marked to make a motion?
Oh, sorry.
Yep. Okay, if we could all vote. Has everyone, okay. Has everyone voted? Yes.
Yeah, I saw all the names flash up on there. I don't know what that was because I've never seen that before. So, but the names didn't flash where we could see the vote, and so we didn't see the vote. So is there any way to get it back, or do we need to do a voice vote?
Should we do it again? We're getting prompted to,
So the motion was by Jones, seconded by Blatt.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, so if everyone could vote one more time.
Okay, I think we're going to have to do a voice vote. I apologize for that. So Princess, if you could please call the roll and do a voice vote.
Committee Member Bates,
Nay?
Committee Member Blatt,
Aye.
Committee Member Copeland,
Aye.
Committee Member Jones,
Aye.
Committee Member Sir,
Aye. So was that a 4-1? Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because it almost sounded like you said aye, but then I realized that wasn't what you said.
No,
Okay,
nay.
got you. So we have 1 nay, 4 ayes, the motion passed.
yes.
Thank you.
There we go, we got it up there.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Princess.
job.
Okay, moving on to item 6B, DTCA 21-00038 at 725 Northwest 11th Street. Laura, if you could introduce the item.
Thank you. Laura Griggs, Planning Department. This item was continued at the June 28th DDRC special meeting with the following recommendation, and I'm just going to read it. That the applicant consider the issues raised in today's meeting as part of the presentation for the next meeting. Discussion included the following: proposed cladding material, wood versus brick versus glass/windows, style and size of windows, removal of the original knee wall between the columns and adding the knee wall on all 3 sides of the proposed infill addition, use and location of trim, location of an addition, benefits of color rendering, location of new walls, addressing the driveway being cut off by an addition and access from the parking lot to the building. The applicant revised proposed elevations for enclosing the portico share, and we included those revised elevations, and Cameron's going to kind of go through and show some pictures of the existing. As you all are aware, the work did start, but you are to consider this as though it didn't start. So some of the pictures were before the work started, taken from Google Earth, and then the others, you can see the green board that was put up. The revised elevations had a written explanation that stated, Increase the number of windows on the front and side of the enclosed portico to match the existing condition at the formerly enclosed front porch, so the windows stretch column to column with no infill wall needed. Eliminated all siding from the proposal, and instead, it's either windows or brick. Proposed a row lock brick seal at new windows with brick veneer below to existing concrete slab at grade. New brick to match existing brick as closely as possible. They propose a new brick-lined planter bed with a curved front edge at the front of the enclosed portico as suggested. Existing salvaged brick will be used at the planter bed. And so starting with the next picture are the revised drawings that were enclosed. As referenced under site history, and I'll just kind of briefly go through some of this because I feel it's very important. This building has formally been listed on the National Register of Historic Places as part of the Manny Historic District. Originally constructed as a single-family home, it has been converted for office use, and that was done quite some time ago. I would say it was probably done prior to 2007 when the Downtown Design District was established. As stated on the National Register of Historic Places nomination form and referenced under the site history in the staff report, portico shares are typical of the bungalow style, and this building is considered a two-story bungalow. The redesign to include more windows and utilize brick cladding below the windows could provide for a more visually pleasing addition. However, staff continues to be concerned about the loss of the portico share, a significant character-defining feature of a building on the National Register of Historic Places. This district was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1978, so quite some time ago. These homes and the buildings that are now Villa Teresa are some of the only remaining historic structures in an area of downtown that was once entirely residential. Unlike the grander scale of the buildings at Villa Teresa, these structures represent the more typical residents of the area. They are one of the last remaining groupings of such homes and constitute the only residential National Register district in downtown Oklahoma City, although all three of them, two of them are offices and one of them is a bed and breakfast of these three structures. While these properties are not designated as part of a local historic district, this committee is similarly charged with ensuring the preservation and revitalization of downtown Oklahoma City's historic resources. National Register listed properties in downtown should not be considered lesser than simply because they are not in a locally designated district. In regard to the previous enclosure of the porch, which was discussed at the last meeting, staff notes that enclosing a porch with either screens or glass was a common modification made to homes historically and retains the overall form of the porch, including pillars and knee walls at the base of the porch. A porch is always closed off from the ground and functions as an extension of the interior of the home. However, enclosing a portico share more dramatically alters the physical form and functionality of the structure, closing it off from the ground, changing access points, and the relationship to the driveway and street. Staff believes that alternatives, including an addition in a less visible location, remain, and that the enclosure of the portico share is both detrimental to the historic character of the National Register listed property and unwarranted. Staff recommends that the request to enclose the existing portico share be denied and that the applicant submit a new CA application with the addition located on the rear of the structure. And if you have any questions for staff, otherwise, Holly Hunt, the architect, is here.
Do we have any questions for staff?
Did you say that this residence is specifically listed by address or part of a district?
It is listed by address, it's listed by name, and it's part of the...
Part of the district.
It is
as
part
well.
of this district, and all three of them are specifically referenced. This particular house is called the Smelzer House, if you look at that nomination form.
And I'll just add, it's a district with only 3 properties in it, so it's not like a, Heritage Hills Mesta Park with 600 whatever
Yeah,
structures.
and we have a picture on the slides that show the district. Right there. So that area in yellow And I have labeled all 3 of those because they're known by the family name, probably the original family name. That right there is this district that we're referring to. That was put on the National Register in 1978.
One question as it relates to staff's recommendation. In the recommendation to deny the application, does that automatically enforce reconstructing the knee wall that's been on the east side that's been demoed?
Legal could disagree with me, but absent any approval to remove the knee wall, I would say that they would have to reconstruct the knee wall that was there, which was just on the, I'll call it the south or southeast between those 2 columns,
Okay.
since they had no authorization to remove that.
I would just add that they would probably just be in violation. We could just issue them a citation if we can't really require them to reconstruct that unless we went to district court and got some type of mandamus or something to require them, but they would just be issued a citation.
And then what would the resolution of that citation be?
I couldn't tell you that.
Okay.
It would be over in municipal
If I may,
court.
that's what actually brought me into the project, that they were
Right.
cited and then reached out to the city and we were referred.
So what I would say to that is, I would say there's 2 paths. There is a citation, they can end up in court with that citation, and that's up to the judge and whatever they decide. However, I would say if the applicant or the owner agrees to put that back in, then one could say that they have eliminated the violation. Code enforcement works really well with staff, and we could say they've reconstructed it, it's back in, if that's the path that you're going to.
Okay, understood. Do we have any other questions for staff?
I'll just note that I think the one other alternative to denial, if the applicant wanted to pursue that, would be another continuance to come back with another revision that restores the portico share and puts an addition on the back or whatever alternates they want to pursue. I think that's how some commissions typically will continue things, to ask for those major changes. Sometimes we do a denial and then they have to come back with a new application, but I think both of those are options depending on how the applicant wants to proceed and what the committee thinks is appropriate.
Great. Holly, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hello again, everyone. So I was reading through the staff report, and I appreciate Laura giving that intro, and she's been great to work with on this. In the staff report, I think one thing we see repeated over and over is not removing original features, retaining original features. In this proposal, I think what we're doing is preserving entirely the portico. All we're doing is infilling in between, and we've gone to this new design that's mostly glass as a way to emphasize that thinness, that this is just an infill, just provides a little bit more square footage in the area of the building that is practical and can be used and function for the clients. And so again, in this infill, and we've taken your comments about the cladding material, we've removed any wall material, rather now that glass extends column to column with a brick wall below. And that's pretty similar to what the knee wall looked like to begin with before the work had begun. And I think in doing this, again, that thinness, it's gonna be pretty clear that this was a portico share that has been enclosed. And in the future, if somebody wanted to restore that portico, they would have that ability. There will be great care taken in aligning that wall, inside the columns, regressed back into as far as we can, really, while still being underneath that portico beam. So I feel that this is a practical way for commercial use of this building. Again, this is not residential. I think most of these types of guidelines are usually applied to a residence and a residential, district. This is a little different, and we all kind of understand it's different since it is zoned commercial. It is zoned for urban mixed use, and it's functioning now as a clinic. So this, for me, the guidelines change a little bit when we're talking about a commercial project, and that we need to preserve its function for its current use, and that would be to allow the current users to maximize the functionality of the building. We talked last time about additions on the rear not really being practical in this situation, just because the way that these were, all the small little rooms are in the back. So that's really used for back of house, more used for the employees. And the front spaces are the exam rooms and the waiting areas. And that's what this would become, is just more of a lobby space, a waiting room to be taken to your private exam in the rear. So, and also we've got a fire escape off the back for the upstairs, as well as the accessible route to the building, which goes around. The current driveway, the handicap parking space is provided as if you drive around the portico and park, there's a path that takes you around to I guess it's the northwest side of the building, actually into that enclosed porch area. And that space is just not big enough. That's why they decided, hey, this makes sense. We'll just go ahead and enclose this portico share. They not realizing that this was on the National Register. That's when I got involved. So I'm just trying to help them achieve their goal of maximizing the space that they have in a cost-effective way. The roof structure is already there. So this little bit of infill is a very budget-friendly way for the clinic to gain a little bit more square footage. And after our discussions, we added that planter bed, again, reusing the salvage bricks from the knee wall there, foremost in the project, so it stands out and it matches what's the existing brick of the main building. We would infill below the glass with brick, because again, the finished floor is much higher than the concrete of the driveway. So it's about 2 feet higher. So we'll have some brick, but again, we're gonna try to match that brick just as closely as possible. It will also be recessed behind the column faces quite a bit as a way to also show that the portico stands out beyond this little bit of infill. I'm really hoping that you all can find this as something that could be approved, given that it's a commercial use in a mixed-use district, and it has developed that historic significance of being commercial for quite some time. And so I feel like this is a proposed design that is sensitive to the existing character-defining features, and has done, great care been taken to not take away any of the existing features and maintain them throughout the project, protect them during construction, and allow for a potential restoration of the portico share at any time. And that's
Thank you.
all. Mm-hmm.
Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Question. The porch between the you pretend closer, how different is? Because I don't see any access to between the porch to the new area. I mean, steps or something.
I don't think I understand your question.
Between the porch,
You're asking about the change in the height of the floor?
Uh-huh.
We're going to go back to the new front elevation, if you can go back.
Sure. Yeah.
but you don't
Next
have, yes,
Yeah,
the
right.
Right.
existing porch is one level, and your new area is the ground level, right?
Yeah, so inside of the infill, we will actually raise the floor. We'll install floor joists that would be flush at that finished floor level.
And I think they have that line shown on this view. You can see the
Existing first level.
center line
Yeah.
going all the way across, and so that represents what the finished floor elevation will be.
Yeah, because again, this is an accessible building. Fully accessibility is required. So that's the reason the floor will be raised. But really from the outside, it's no different than the infill of the existing, or the porch, I should say, on the northwest corner. Similar type of infill there. And we've tried to match that again just to balance that out and to maintain the fenestration rhythm that was created with that infill.
Could we go back to the floor plan? So as this is drawn right now, the proposed enclosed space is technically exterior as I'm reading it. And so how are you accessing that space? And right now there's a dashed line that separates the enclosed portico share from the exterior porch.
Well, if you'll look at, if you would show the existing photo before any work had been done, you'll see that there's a beam structure is up there. So we would just again maintain that. At one time, the portico would have been open to that porch. So you can see the siding infill. I'm sorry, I thought you could see up in there. So that there is another beam that separates the porch from the portico share. So that beam also would be maintained. And that's represented there just as a dash line, meaning above.
As I'm hearing that, the access is going to be from the existing porch. They're raising the grade where the portico shares, and you'll just be walking out. That's how you'll access the new space.
So looking at this image where we have a yellow painted siding wall, that wall is being removed?
Yes. Yes.
And what is the use of this proposed enclosed space?
It will be like a lobby waiting area. This is a shoulder pain clinic. They have a staff, I think, of 4 to 6, depending on the day, and they see anywhere between around 20 patients a day.
So is it unconditioned space?
No, it will be conditioned.
I'm having trouble following that. If this yellow painted siding wall is removed and looking at the floor plan, if I walk up the stairs to the porch in between those two sculptures and I stand in front of the front door, if we can go back to the floor plan, I am still outside. Oh, no, I'm not.
No, you're
not. I'm
His-
sorry.
that was
I'm sorry.
formerly-
Yes. That door, is that?
And this is pinching it. It looks like a really narrow space in there.
Yeah, sorry, I made it fit, so it's,
Okay, so the exterior door is much closer to those exterior stairs than I had in my head. I was
Yeah.
seeing that exterior door at the next wall. So this all does now make sense to me.
Thank you. Yeah, there are 2 entrances. As you can see, the normal pedestrian swinging door with stairs, but then there's also the fully accessible entry and ramp from the northwest, since we're on an angle, kind of the north side of the building. And it's a slider. It's an automatic slider. So it just accommodates all users.
And then simply for clarification, can you describe the proposed infill wall on the north side of the portico share? I do not believe that's been elevated.
You mean the existing ADA entry?
No, so the space within the enclosed portico share, the north wall. So we have an elevation that shows the south facade and
Oh,
the front of
in the east wall.
We have an elevation of the east. There's a portion of infill on the north.
Well, it's actually the,
If you
Yeah, I
could,
know what you mean.
yeah, we discussed that actually, and
Okay.
it's kind of the east, northeast,
yes,
Right.
because I
So-
asked what that was going to be.
yes.
So previously, the same, the same amount of windows I had shown were on all three sides. I have not been given clearance to up the window budget. So as a way to kind of compromise, I have used 3 windows on the front, column to column, and 4 on the side, column to column. And on the back side, we'll just do a brick wall. And again, though, it will be recessed in quite a bit. It's a very non-visible elevation from the public right-of-way. So I focused the design mainly on that front and side view to maximize, yeah. I mean, you can see it, but again, we feel like it's a lesser, and I would, if that is what it takes, if we need windows on all 3 sides, I think that, that's something I can take to my client and say, this is what we'll have to do. But what I'm proposing now is, again, a budget-friendly option for, the current users do not own the building. They lease it. So these improvements are obviously they are footing the bill on these improvements, but they have a budget. It's just all there is to it. So I've tried to compromise with what you all said and what they're able to do and bring the best proposal we can.
So this is a view that I took, and you can see it's kind of like the northeast wall. Yes, there's a parking lot next to it. Will it always be a parking lot? Probably not. I would imagine at some point it won't be. It is a little visible now just because there's a parking lot next to it, but it's quite a distance from the road, which is, my mind just went blank on what road that is. That
11th.
11th Street.
11th, I was going to say 10th.
Oh, okay, 11th, yes. So,
And in this view, you can see that fire escape I was brought up earlier, as well as that accessible route that goes around the building. So, we've got trash cans, we've got mechanical equipment. It's a lesser elevation on this side. And typically, there are cars parked there. As well as, like Laura said, it could be developed in the future and therefore, completely invisible at that time. And it does, on the side plan, you can tell how far away it is from 11th, just because of its angle, the way that it was platted, that the parking lot takes up a big chunk of space on that corner, and therefore your street is far away. Your line of sight is already, by the time you get close enough to see it, you wouldn't be able to see that backside anyway, in other words.
Thank you. It was more of just simply a clarification for record.
Sure.
Do we have any other questions for the applicant?
I do, actually. I actually really like the infill that you're proposing.
Thank you.
And to me, and my initial thought is I actually like the idea of windows on that back wall because then you can see through it. It kind of re-emphasizes the history of what that is, at least to me. And just all the natural light too.
Right.
But I like what you've done. I still don't quite, so are you thinking that the existing concrete drive would still be in use?
Yeah.
And you would go around your infill space?
Yeah, I spoke with my client, and they do use this drive for accessible vans. Because of, there's no step. Here on our property line between the parking lot and our driveway, there is a curb, a 6-inch curb, and there's not a ramp. So any handicap users access the building by this concrete drive. Currently, they drive around the Portico. They don't park there. It's not large enough to open. It doesn't have clearance for an accessible van anyway. So they currently drive around the portico to the rear and unload, and people come around this side of the building. So we did need to maintain the drive. But I felt like the planter bed, as well as, you know, the infill wall being mostly glass, it kind of tells that story that this, you know, used to function this way and now it functions in a different way for this current use.
Yeah, I think you've done a good job showing the effort to preserve the history. And I actually really agree with your story of the change of what this building's used for. It was residential once and now it's commercial. So I personally am open to the change of the building as well, especially with your effort of the preserving of the space too. So thank you for doing that. So for the ADA route, now that we're talking about that a little bit, is there ADA parking spaces, or they just go park back there in the back?
Usually there is. So
Okay.
Oklahoma City allows for driveways to serve as a parking space. But usually in this case, they get dropped off. They're not really driving themselves. So it's a little bit different. But even still, so if someone were to come drive themselves that is handicapped and parked in the parking lot, they still have an accessible route, as you can kind of see out here on the corner, from the parking lot. This is an accessible city sidewalk that's level with the concrete drive, and then they could approach from the concrete drive and be level with the, they'd have to go around the building, but they could enter and all, you know, it would be an accessible route. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
To me, in the north wall, you need the windows, because I don't see any, in the pictures, I don't see any other wall that don't have openings.
Mm-hmm.
So to match a little more with the all the building is better.
To have more windows there.
The windows in the three sides.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've done a very good job with what you had to work with. I think that the front and side elevations are exactly what was discussed. I think the landscaped element kind of meets the intent of the conversation without a full redesign of what it potentially could be. I do agree that in the event that this goes in the direction that you are requesting, it is important for transparency that there are windows on three sides, that they match a similar, match the existing windows. And when I went by, I noticed that the current windows that are in the opposite side are actually a single hung configuration. They have an extra shadow line. That's not necessarily depicted in your documents. It would be, I think, appropriate that the window detailing is similar in configuration. The hang up that I have is the comment about, would I allow it if you came and it had not started? That's a trick, because I would lean against infilling the portico if it had not started and it was just a request.
Mm-hmm.
You make a very valid point about the functionality of this particular use, where it's located, how it's supposed to be, the fact that it is a business use. Like I said, I think that you have done the very best that you can with the situation that you have. I think it's unfortunate that where it's located, and I'll be interested if anybody else has comments on.
So if I might just, based on something you said.
Sure.
Just as a reminder, you're reviewing this as though they did not start the work. And you always hear that from staff whenever work has started, so that's kind of off the table. I realize it's hard to not see it,
Right.
but I just wanted to remind you all.
Again, I had nothing to do with that.
No, and we certainly don't blame you, but it's also important for us to send the message to, you know, future applicants that you're not going to get a pass by trying to sneak a project in and then coming and asking for forgiveness. So that's just a message we try to consistently send, that we have to look at it as if the work hadn't occurred and not take the expense that's already been, paid out or the work that's already been done into account.
Well, and to that end, I guess, I think my argument would be the same, that due to its use and functionality, there is no purpose for a portico share on this building for its current use or even future use. It's not going to be rezoned into some residence in the future. This is continuing to be a very dense urban area, and for its future use, this little bit of infill, it tells the story of its past, just like the other two houses in this Manny district do, but they all serve a new function, and therefore, as preservationists, we can allow for some modifications that suit the needs of its commercial use. And I definitely think that when you look at this list of things that the guidelines say, we are retaining the features, we are, maintaining, we're not taking anything away, nothing is being removed. So for that reason, I think it's still a good argument for development of these areas to serve their current function.
So, and just as a reminder, single family is still a permitted use in that zoning district in DTD1. So I'm not saying somebody's coming in tomorrow and converting it back to a residence, but somebody can use it as a house. I realize it has not been used as a house for a very long time. None of these three have been used as a house for a very long time.
You made one statement, I think that it's important to clarify, that you're not taking anything away in the way that, in the event that you were to include a slab in this infill space, you're saying that you're going to do that as a slab on crawl space, so you're not going to tear out brick, you're not going to tie ledgers back into the existing framing. It's all going to be done independent of the existing envelope.
That's correct. That is correct.
It's helpful. I mean, there are times in which we do things that are specifically made and noted to be removable without damaging any part of the existing fabric.
Right.
And I think that in this case, that would be another one of the items that's very important.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, I echo a lot of what's been said, and I am very sensitive to historic preservation, but the way that you are approaching this as an infill, maintaining what's there, doing it in a way that it could be removed and brought back to its original condition. Some unique context that the west side of this porch, the infill at that area, I believe, is not original as well. The porch was fully open. And so in instances like this where you are preserving a building by helping its use, doing things that help a building's use is a way of preserving a building.
Correct.
And so, this is an instance like that. I think it still needs to be done extremely well. There are 3 details that I would advocate for. One of which we've already discussed is placing windows on that northeast wall as well. Kayla made a really good point about visibility through it, and that's a really good way of maintaining some of the essence of the portico share itself. The second detail are the sills. And what's being proposed is a brick sill. However, this house doesn't have brick sills. It has precast sills. And so I would advocate that the sills be fabricated and installed to match that of the existing house. And then third, the planter, very much, I think the planter is a good move. It's a good way of buffering between the driveway and the building. It grounds this enclosure. The curved profile of that planter feels a little out of place. There's no any other curved lines on this building. So I would advocate for squaring that up. And then once that planter receives a precast sill as well, similar to even that knee wall on the east side that got taken out and squared up, I think it'll feel more in context with what's already there. And it reads that way in the elevations, and I was actually surprised when I got to the plan and saw the curve.
Oh, I drew it in straight at first,
Sure.
and then I went back and thought about it. But I think all those are great points, and you know, we can work all of that into this design. And I completely agree with the transparency thing. You know, I'll just let them know, hey guys, we want to get this done. We want to get this additional. We have to do it this way, and you know, they'll comply, and we'll get it done. So. I love those ideas. I love the cast stone sill. Again, a little bit more money, but it's nothing that, again, it's for the purpose of fitting into the architectural style, and I completely get it. So we'd be fully amenable to all those suggestions.
Yeah, I would.
As well as, Tony, yours about the windows. I could do a little better survey of those existing windows and bring a detail that's true and accurate, and we can match those.
Yeah, I think investing in this in front of the building is worth it, is valuable, is still a budget-friendly approach compared to doing an addition elsewhere.
Totally
on the
agree.
building.
Absolutely.
The items that we discussed, are they able to be brought back to staff for an administrative approval if the motion is read that way?
I feel comfortable with that. Given some real clear direction. So one of the things I want to ask is, there was 2 or 3 of you that talked about requiring windows on the northeast wall. Is there a certain number minimum that you're saying, or do you want it to look
Will
like,
fit.
I think I heard 2.
2 will fit, yeah.
To me, it's like, looks the same to the front, or 2 is minimal. I don't know
Okay.
the rest of the.
Yeah, if I can consolidate, taking the same approach with the windows on the northeast wall as they have with the
Southwest?
with the west and the south.
Okay.
Would anyone in the gallery like to speak to this?
So for those of you that are thinking about making a motion, if you're thinking about making a motion differently than what staff has in your packet, and you're thinking about having conditions, we can help you with that, or you're welcome to do that. So we were talking about windows, the same number as is on, I'll say, the front and the side. You're talking about having that on the back. You're talking about having precast sills. Or you could actually say 2 windows if you wanted to on that. Talking about having precast sills on all the new windows. There was something you said about on the planter,
Squaring it up.
squaring it up. Okay.
Is that the feel? Because I think that's great. Okay.
Absolutely. Also, are you removing the plants on the opposite side of the entry?
Am I removing them? No.
Okay.
In fact, that's why I probably don't have the best measurements, because those are way overgrown, and I just did my best, like trying to get up in there without scratching myself all too. So, but I will match them exactly.
I was going to suggest just getting rid of those. They're way overgrown for
They
the building.
are way overgrown.
It would
Yeah.
be lovely if they matched what they're doing here on the
With
other
the
side.
planter bed?
Yeah.
I can certainly make that as a suggestion.
Okay, so then we had one saying the windows to match the existing windows on the enclosed porch. Is that what I was hearing from you, Kayla?
Say that again.
The new windows to match the existing windows on the enclosed porch?
Yeah.
That was actually my statement.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't match the building.
Say that again?
They do not match the
I mean,
balance of the structure.
I was hearing
but they
discussion,
do-
so,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that they would read as an element. And even though they are different, the one thing that differentiates itself is that it specifically states that it's no longer historic character on the building.
Right.
Most national park submissions, there is some differentiating quality between original and replacement material. So I would say it needs to match what's on the enclosed porch to
Right.
the northwest.
Okay.
I do also think it's important that the detailing is such that it can be removed and none of the existing character is damaged, removed, modified.
So the new construction in the enclosure area should be designed and constructed in such a way that it can be removed?
And all of the original fabric remains.
Correct.
Do we have any more thoughts or discussion before entertaining a motion? I would entertain a motion.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance as referenced in Section D of the staff report with the following conditions. Windows shall be added on the northeast side of the addition and all windows shall match the current type and operation of the northwest porch enclosure, that the addition is done in a manner that if removed at a later date, all of the original fabric remains and none of it is damaged or modified by this new addition, that the planter bed is made orthogonal, same geometry as the existing, and that the new planting material and the planting material mirrored on the other side of the stairwell match, which would mean that the existing planting material to the northwest of the stairwell is removed, that all of the sills and the cap to the planter bed be cast stone to match color and texture and finish of the existing building. Did I miss anything?
So you wrote in there, we have to do a planter bed on the other side?
No,
Oh, okay.
just plant material.
I got you, thank you. I
Yeah.
just clarified. I was like,
No.
Second.
That was a very well done Blatt motion, seconded by Jones. And if we could all vote when it comes up. And that item passes.
thank you.
Thank you for everything you've done to work on this with us. And that concludes cases for individual consideration. Under item 7, other business, we have none. Item 8, communications. There's a number of items under the administrative approval report. Do we have any comments from the planning department staff?
I'm here to answer any questions if you have any about any of those.
Do we have any questions for staff? Any general comments before closing? Our next regular meeting is Thursday, September 16th, 2021.
And we have a meeting, I'm sorry, I just jumped up. So we do have a meeting next month. Please check your calendar and I will send out an early quorum call.
Okay.
Thank you all for being here today and wearing your masks. And I'm sorry for the confusion on the email, quickly followed by another email because things change rapidly these days, so.
Any new applications were to be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. on Tuesday, the 17th, 2021, and meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Gov will come around and